Random response video on the subject of overpopulation. So I did a random search and this is the video I came up with. A guy named Daniel. He's a Zacharite, a friend of Zach 3333 ZZZ whatever. But anyway, Daniel Quinn kind of guy. But regardless, he made a good quick little point on overpopulation and the bizarre notion that there are actually people who think the idea of overpopulation is some sort of canard, some sort of lie by the government or something, because we could fit all the people into Arkansas or all the people into the Grand Canyon, and therefore we don't have too many people. And it is quite obvious that when you think of how much energy it takes to feed us, I mean, it might be 70% of the energy usage that goes to food production. And then just think about things like waste disposal, how much energy it takes to create a heated, comfortable human environment. And then think about all the places. I mean, humanity is dispersed in environments where they can't be self-sustaining, and it's impossible physically. And that's the reality of the world we live in. And we're pushing the ecosystem to its limits, and we're definitely running on borrowed time, borrowed oil, billions of years of stored dead life. Billions of years of stored solar energy that we're just ripping out of the ground and consuming, and the population curve, the use curves are all going the wrong way. They're unsustainable, and it can only lead to negative consequences, and the negative consequences will feed the very problem we're trying to prevent. I mean, as their life becomes less and less sophisticated, as they are forced into a more primitive circumstance, they find the simple pleasure of, relationship and the product of it, children, and that's what they end up living for. And life becomes simple and crude, and overpopulation will only become worse, and the average human standard of living will decline, and there will just be more suffering to be endured. I mean, it's just a huge, giant waste. Just because people can't be rational and responsible. I'll also post a link to a math guy who does all the math for you, points out how it's really unsustainable. Any growth is doom over the long term. It just can't, things cannot live on growth. It's a big, huge mistake. Alright, so there's got to be, for anything to happen, is that, there's got to be a change in the social meme, the norm. People got to feel, they got to be stigmatized a little bit. I mean, this decision to have kids can't be celebrated and embraced, and everybody can't be applauding and congratulating and all that stuff. I mean, it's, when they hand you the cigar, you got to shove it right back up their ass or something, because they're not doing the world a favor, they're not doing you a favor. They're just increasing the burdens on the future. Especially now, we're going into real dicey times because the rich are broken the economy, and life's going to get tricky and rough. And even if that didn't happen, we were on an unsustainable curve. The consumption of fuel was beyond what was supply, and you saw the prices reflected that. So that was unsustainable too. So we really don't have anywhere to go here. We've got to reduce population. We've got to make human beings more efficient and productive. And it just can't be all this wasteful nonsense. Really is irritating when you see like shows like that stupid Alex Jones guy. He did a whole show on this kind of nonsense, this attitude that it's really not a problem, and it's a huge problem. He does a show about how awful it was that 20 or 30 years ago the welfare boards used to impose some birth control on people. They went too far sometimes. Apparently they sterilize some people in negative ways, castration and such. I don't think that was by any policy. That was just people a little out of control. But there's nothing wrong with obliging people that can't even support themselves, from obliging them not to create more people that can't support themselves. It's just stupid. I'm against eugenics or whatever. I'm eugenics or whatever, controlling, redesigning the human race. Fuck that shit. But by the same token, we shouldn't celebrate allowing the dumbest and the stupidest to do all the breeding. That's a prescription for disaster also. I mean, we should have some respect for the life that's being created, and have some prospect of creating a better world and a better life for those new life forms to live in. And if we can't do that, if we can't guarantee a better future, we have no business imposing it on anybody. So, part of this argument is going to be done through conversation, and just explain to people that, yeah, there really is a life beyond having, procreating. There's a lot more to do in this world. There's a lot more ways to entertain yourself, than raising families. And even if you're going to raise a family, you can do it with 1 or 2 kids. You don't need 5 or 6 kids. And so that's a conversation that needs to take place between people. But then some people just, some parts of the world need to be yelled at. I mean, some of them need to be whacked with a stick. I mean, really. I mean, it really comes down to they're just consuming resources. And I'm not saying you cut them off, but there's got to be some kind of real extortion imposed on the rest of these many of these countries. They're living off welfare, essentially. They're living off food provided by other parts of the world at a deficit to themselves and to the other country, and there's no point in subsidizing that. There's no point in perpetuating that. I mean, unsustainable economies have no excuse to be fed. They have if they're not going to be responsible, if they're not going to try to be sustainable, if they're not going to be tried to be rational. And countries that aren't going to do anything to control their overpopulation should pay a price for that lack of responsibility. So anyway, the issue does get complex, but there really has to be a social event. Having kids has to be recognized for what it is, just selfish, stupid, maybe even cruel. It's certainly rude, right? Especially facing the world we're facing. It's pretty fucking rude to have a kid when you're looking at the future and you have no idea what it's going to be like. You have no guarantee that anything, will be possible in that future. It's just plain rude to have kids under that in that circumstance. And there's got to be somebody's got to be preaching that message. People got to get some funny looks from other people when they decide to have kids. No more of this celebrating the prego crap. I mean, because it is a selfish act, period. It's selfish. All right, you force other people to raise your damn kids on top of it, which is pretty disgusting. I mean, it really is a huge social expense. Taking care of other people's kids is a huge expense of society. And people really shouldn't be able to walk into that without any appreciation of, number one, the social cost, and number two, having some appreciation for the imposition on the individual they're giving life to. Because they can't create a world for that kid. Unless they got the money in the bank, they really have no business expecting everything to work out just fine. Because that's not how it works in the real fucking world. So anyway, just a little rant on the subject, and a link to the guy's video. And people should talk about this shit. Somebody should start yelling about it. Maybe bang some pots and pans together and say, there's too many fucking people on Earth. We gotta do something about it. So anyway, enough said. Thank you very much.